Hi, my name is Chris and this is Battle Nonsense. Most of you know me as Mr. Netcode, who shows you things like that the server will even confirm hits from players who have a ping of up to 600 milliseconds. But if you are a long-time subscriber of my channel or just looked at my previous videos at some point, then you know that I have done a lot of concept designs in the past, in which I try to fix issues, improve existing features or add new features to the game. So in the previous 10 design concepts that I made, I showed you an improved chat window and text feed, a compass ribbon, an improved com rows with the addition of a tactical rows, as many of you might remember from Battlefield 2. Then I made a design concept for a queue system for the XP boosts, so that you don't have to enable them one after the other. Then there's the alternative revive mechanic that prevents that players revive you even though you don't want to be revived, like in front of an enemy vehicle. I also tried to give Conquest a different twist by increasing the factions from 2 to 3, which gives it a completely different dynamic and should prevent the state where one team gets locked into their base. Then there's the issue that the game provides a lot of info inside the head-up display, which confuses players so that they miss the important things like to whom they should give ammo or which objective they should attack. To address that issue, we came up with the mission log, which shows the player what he should focus on next in order to be effective on the battlefield and to help his team. The biggest design concept that I made so far is my take on the class system, where I tried to give each class more value by giving them a specific role. I also came up with solutions for the issue that some players abuse jets and helicopters as taxi, and the problem that some people do not even know when they are the squad leader. I also made a concept for the kill cam, because the one that we have in Battlefield 4 and Hardline is not very useful, as it does a bad job explaining to the player how he got killed. In many cases you get shot by multiple players from different directions, but the kill cam only shows you one player as your killer, which can lead to the accusation that this player used a hack, as his gun could not have killed you so fast. This impression can also be caused when you think that you still had 100 health, but you were already down to 50. The kill cam does not tell you that. My concept design tries to provide a solution for all these issues, and it integrates seamlessly into the existing UI of Battlefield 4 and Hardline, which means that it would have a chance to actually get implemented into those games. And in my last concept, I showed you what a more realistic scope rendering would look like in Battlefield. So these are the design concepts that I made so far. Now, what is the new one about? How does a game designer know which changes he should make to improve a game that has already been released? Or how you can make sure that the next game that you're working on will be better than the previous one? First and foremost, there is the vision that the game designer or studio has for the game, but the feedback that they get from the community has or should also have a very strong impact in the development. So how do they get that feedback? Most of today's games provide the studios with a huge amount of telemetry. This means that they know which maps players like, which they don't like, and which game modes they like to play on these maps and which they don't like to play on these maps. They also know the hotspots on each of these maps, which guns players use, etc, etc, etc. A problem with the telemetry is that this data can be interpreted in different ways. So if you see that one map is very popular, then this does not necessarily mean that it is exceptionally good. It's possible that this map is just mediocre, but since the other maps are even worse, it turns out to be the most popular. So if the designers then think that this map is exactly what the players want to have, and then build more maps like it, then they might have been misled by their telemetry. So telemetry alone is not the answer, which is why they also monitor forums like Battlelog and Reddit, as well as social media like Facebook and Twitter to get feedback from there. However, the issue here is that the part of your community which is active on these online platforms represents the minority of your players. And sometime after the release of the game, these online platforms tend to turn into an echo chamber, where you hear the opinion of the minority of your players, and their voice is usually very loud, while the majority of the people who play your game will never even visit Reddit or Battlelog forums. Then there's the issue that you will barely get feedback about the things that players like in your game, as most people who are vocal about the game will tell you what they don't like. And you can't just assume that players love what they don't complain about. So just like the telemetry, the feedback that comes from that part of your community that is active in forums and social media has to be treated with caution. If a studio wants to get very detailed feedback from the players, then they use a survey, where they can find out how much a player likes or dislikes something. A problem that we have with surveys is that the data that you get might not be very conclusive, because there are always people who try to run the survey multiple times. or you have people participating who don't even own the game. And in general, you have the issue that only a small part of your players will participate, as they have to visit a specific website for that. So how can developers get direct feedback from all of their players, where they can be sure that no one is left out and only those who actually own and play the game can participate? The answer is actually very simple, and I'm surprised that we don't have this already. Directly integrate the survey into the game, like EA has already integrated one into Origin. So on the PC this would mean that Battlelog gets an additional icon in the top right corner, and if there's a new survey, then the icon will make us aware of that. When I now click at the icon, then I get a list of surveys that are currently available, that I participated in the past, as well as those that I ignored or missed. When I click at one of the active surveys, then I will get directly to it, where I first get a basic description of what that survey is about, how long it will take to complete, etc. Here it is very important that these surveys should be short, so that they can be completed in just a few minutes, as you will get more feedback from the players when you do smaller surveys on a regular basis, rather than one huge survey once per year that takes 20 minutes or more to complete. The survey would then work like any other survey, so you can select how much you agree or disagree. You can have questions with multiple answers, as well as questions where you can write your own answer. Now, when a studio wants to get feedback, then the PC players are the smallest problem, because they are already in front of their PC and they're usually very vocal. This is not the case for the console gamers, which, like it or not, are the biggest part of the player base. So we also need to find a way to get their voices heard. To achieve that, we could simply add an additional item into the main menu, which will then get you to the surveys that the studio releases. If Microsoft and Sony do not allow that, then maybe the Battlelog overlay would be an alternative where they could basically access the survey like the website. So what are the benefits of directly including a survey function into the game? It allows you to reach every single player who is still playing your game. It is extremely easy and comfortable to use for both the player and the studio. The developers could even do platform-specific surveys like you see here, where we have a survey about aim assist, which didn't show up on the screens that I showed you before on the Battlelog website, as this does not affect PC players. You could even have surveys target players of a specific region, as well as localized surveys so that they show up in the native language of that player. These surveys also can't be manipulated by running them several times, as every account is only able to run it once. And the developers could send out follow-up surveys based on the specific answers that they get from some of their players. The possibilities of such an integrated survey function are endless, and coupled with the telemetry that the developers receive from the game, it would result in a much better game, as the designers and developers are able to very easily reach every single player of their game to find out how much they like or dislike a specific feature, as well as what features they miss or what kind of changes they want to get. Of course, this will also require that they are willing to ask the hard and painful questions, like hit reg, suppression, netcode, available options for server admins, especially on console, etc, etc, etc. But if a studio would start to use such a feature, then I'm sure that the players would be much happier with the game they get, and no one would feel left out and ignored, as everyone is able to provide feedback that the developers will actually receive. Such a feature would already have been a big help for the Battlefront Alpha, as well as the Battlefield 4 CTE that just launched on the Xbox One. So I really hope that DICE will consider to build in such a survey function in one of their upcoming games. What do you think? How would you improve the process of getting feedback to the developers? Let me know in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, then give it a like, subscribe for more, and I hope to see you next time. Until then, have a nice day and take care. My name is Chris and this was Battle Nonsense.